Hi, I'm Nel Suraj. Now you may or may not know, but a season of supernatural God encounter is about to come upon the church. Many prophets in the nations confirm this. Now, there's a lot more to a supernatural God encounter than signs and wonders. Isaiah the prophet had a supernatural God encounter himself in Isaiah chapter 6. And Isaiah shows us 5 things we need to understand about a season of supernatural God encounter. Firstly, number 1, a major natural event is a sign that a supernatural God encounter is forthcoming. Isaiah's God encounter occurred in the year that King Uzziah died. Verse 1 tells us that. So Isaiah's encounter followed a major event in Judah's history, the death of their king. And so this natural event carried spiritual significance. It was an indication that heaven was pulsating and a supernatural move of God was impending. You see, natural events can serve as spiritual indicators. So crises like coronavirus and the economic shakings are signs that a supernatural God encounter is about to invade the earth and God is about to open the heavens over His church and over your life. Number 2, a season of supernatural God encounter is a time of open heavens over your life. From Isaiah's God encounter in chapter 6, we get an idea about what to expect in the time of open heavens. We know you become God conscious of His majesty and sovereignty because Isaiah saw the Lord sitting on the throne high and lifted up. We know we receive an outpouring of God's Spirit because the train of God's robe filled the temple. And all the dimensions of the Spirit, signs, wonders, miracles, gifts of the Spirit, robes of righteousness is all poured upon His church. We know also that you encounter angelic activities because in verse 2 Isaiah sees seraphim, and those are angels bringing supernatural protection, provision, intervention and visitations. And we know we also receive the revelation of God of the nations because Isaiah saw the angels crying holy, holy, holy and declaring the whole earth is full of His glory. We also begin to worship God in spirit and in truth because the smoke filled the temple, and we know that that was speaking of the altar of incense. But the third thing we need to understand about a season of supernatural God encounter is a supernatural God encounter will first bring a revelation of your fault lines. Because in verse 5, Isaiah has the revelation of the fault lines in his life when he says, "Woe is me, I am undone. I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people with unclean lips." A season of God encounter is a time of deep internal consecration of the soul. The cracks in your foundation are laid bare, and God causes you to see yourself as you truly are. You receive a revelation of your true state and the real condition of your heart. It's a season of deep heart surgery, and you know what? It's a process that you must not despise. Number 4, a supernatural God encounter will also provide the revelation of Christ you need to eliminate that fault lines. Because in verse 6 and 7 we read that one of the seraphim flew and it had in its hands a live coal which it had taken from the altar, and it touched Isaiah's lips, and it says, "Behold, his iniquity was taken away, his sin was purged." Now that coal that touched Isaiah's lips was taken from the altar of sacrifice. And the altar of sacrifice, we know, represents Christ because Christ is the sacrificed lamb. So the coal that cleansed Isaiah's lips speaks of the word that proceeds from the finished work of Christ. You see, a supernatural God encounter will bring a fresh revelation of the finished work of Christ to you, and that revelation has the power to destroy and remove your fault lines. Dynamic transformations will take place in your inner man as you are healed and restored, because a supernatural God encounter will never leave you the same. The fifth and last thing, a supernatural God encounter will raise your stature and raise the content of your message. Isaiah says in verse 8 that he heard the voice saying, "Whom shall I send?" And then he says, "Here am I, send me."
Send me.
Isaiah, you see, he was prophesying in the 5 preceding chapters. But here in the 6th chapter, after his supernatural God encounter, Isaiah's life and message was perfected for his prophetic office. That's why in a season of supernatural God encounter, your grace will become clearer to you, and your life will become better and better configured to outwork your calling. You may find yourself even returning to your original calling, or sometimes even becoming more focused and more serious and engrossed with your primary assignment. Let me close. Son of God, get ready. Your season of supernatural God encounter is on its way. The heavens are about to open over your life.